rate adjustments public hearing. I'd like to thank a couple of folks for helping to make this happen, especially Kevin McCain from my staff, Public Utilities Assistant Director John Lee, and certainly representatives from the department. Thank you for being here this evening. Also really want to thank Steve Gladman, who chairs the Sewer, Water, and Advisory Board, for informing us of the 2021 utility rate adjustments, which we'll talk about here momentarily. But also want to thank Mr. Gladman and everyone who serves on that board and serves the public here in Columbus and all of the ratepayers of Columbus Public Utilities. Want to thank the members of the public who are joining us virtually. As everything with COVID, we've moved this hearing online to protect everyone's safety. Do want to remind those members of the public who wish to speak or submit testimony, you can do so to my legislative aide, Kevin McCain. He can be reached at kbmccain, M-C-C-A-I-N, at columbus.gov. There, he can send you the proper links to offer testimony, or you can submit written testimony as well. The purpose of this hearing is to review and comment on the proposed 2022 water and sewer rates for the City of Columbus and Central Out customers. We'll discuss with the department payment assistance programs for low-income residents and seniors, and who may qualify for reduced rates. As well, for those who may have been economically impacted by this COVID-19 crisis. This hearing is live streamed on the City Council's Facebook and YouTube pages and is being conducted via WebEx. The video will be posted on the City of Columbus YouTube channel following this event. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Sewer and Water Advisory Board Chairman, Steve Gladman. Steve?
Thank you, Councilmember Dorans. With your consent, I'd like to read into the record a letter that I sent to Council President Hardin and yourself, making recommendations from the board regarding the water and sewer rates.
Please do so. Thank you.
Dear President Hardin, Councilmember Dorans, members of the Sewer and Water Advisory Board met remotely with representatives of the Department of Public Utilities 4 times in 2020 to review and discuss the operations and project planning activities of water, sewer, and stormwater enterprises. At our October 7th meeting, we reviewed proposed water, sanitary, sewer, and storm rates. The board approved the following rate recommendations effective 1 January 2021. For the fiscal year 2021, the board recommends an increase in sanitary sewer rates of 3%, water rates of 2%, and stormwater rates of 1%. When considered together, the bill impact on an average residential customer within the City of Columbus is 2.49%. Overall, this adds approximately $7.35 in charges to a residential customer's bill each quarter, or $29.40 a year. Over the past few years, the board has not raised excess charges per recommendations from our rate study. The board recommends no additional increases in these in 2021. The board recommends continuing the surcharge within the sanitary sewer rates, known as the Clean River Fee, to support payment of expenses related to construction of projects mandated by the consent orders entered into to eliminate combined sewer and sanitary sewer overflows. This charge is based on measured impervious surface areas. The equivalent residential unit, or ERU, equals 2,000 square feet of impervious surface area for each residential customer, both inside the city and outside the city. It is billed one ERU per month. Commercial and industrial customers are charged based on the actual measured impervious area. The board also recommends continuing the low-income discount for water and sanitary sewer commodity charges at 20%. Low-income customers are defined as being at 100% of the federal poverty level or qualifying for a state low-income program. The Department of Public Utilities is continuing its outreach efforts to identify customers that have not taken advantage of the low-income program. Lastly, the board recommends no increase in sewer and water capacity charges for 2021. The board feels that the rate adjustments are fair and equitable and are necessary to provide the funding to support the day-to-day operations of the division, as well as to continuing to support a critical and sizable capital improvement program within the Department of Utilities. As always, the board will work with the public utility staff to ensure that future rate increases are minimized to the extent possible. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call me. Sincerely, Stephen Gladman, Chairman of the Sewer and Water Advisory Board. Thank you, Mr. Dorans.
Thank you, Chair Gladman. I'd now like to provide an opportunity for us to hear from Department of Public Utilities Assistant Director John Lee on the proposed 2021 utility rate adjustments. Mr. Lee?
Thank you, Councilmember Dorans. If you don't mind, I'd actually like to share my screen so I could go into a little bit more detail on our rate increases, show a little bit of graphic illustration of future years, and give you a little bit more detail on some of our assistant programs. Just give me a second there. Okay, hopefully you can see that okay. As Chairman Gladman mentioned, these are our proposed rate increases for 2021. Water rate increase of 2%, sewer 3%, and storm of 1%. When you combine that on aggregate, we're looking at about 2.49%. Chairman Gladman said the impact to an average residential bill would be about $7.35 or close to $30, a little less annually. We are going to continue our low-income and senior discounts. I wanted to show you what we have in 2020. We're in a little bit lower. In 2020, we proposed and implemented about 2.95% overall increase. So we went in, we were aware of, obviously we're in a pandemic situation and the bill impact. So we did make efforts to reduce our rates in 2021 and be cognizant of affordability, but also being aware that we have to continue to maintain our capital program and cover our operating expenses from the additional revenue from the rates. As far as our rates, proposed rates, we do charge inside city rates, and we also charge outside city rates, which are a little bit higher. You can see there some examples of the bill impact on a quarterly basis. Again, this assumes about 30 CCFs. That's about a family of 4. So not everybody that has a family of 4. So some may consume about 15 CCFs a quarter, or a little bit less, a little bit more. But we like to use 30, and you can see there that in 2020, your bill may be $295. It might be going up to about $302 per quarter. You live on the outside the city in the suburbs, you might be paying around $324 currently, go up to about $332. I will note that for the outside city customers, the suburban communities do ask us if we do their billing for them to charge an additional surcharge. Not every community has additional surcharges, but those surcharges cover various capital costs within their community. So that $8.16 might be a little bit higher with those surcharges. If you qualify for the low income discounts, there's a reduction on your commodity charge, which is your consumption charge. You have a service charge and a consumption charge in your bill, so it's a little bit less for those that qualify. They would be seeing around a $6.15 increase. I'd like to always kind of go into what's some of the background, some of the factors that we use, guidance that we use whenever we're looking at our rate increases. Obviously, affordability. How does it impact customers, both residential and commercial entities? Is it fair and reasonable? Are we in line with other communities? We look at water consumption levels. We've been pretty flat for water consumption the past few years. Account growth has been pretty steady. We typically have account growth a little less than 1% each year. We haven't seen much change there. Consumption has been a little bit higher on the residential side just because a lot more folks have been at home during the pandemic. Obviously, rate increases, we have to factor in their capital program and aging infrastructure. All communities are dealing with aging infrastructure. Our infrastructure is in the ground, water lines, storm sewer infrastructure, and regulatory requirements. That's a very big component of our our capital program, and one of the big drivers behind the rate increases is compliance with that Ohio EPA consent order, which we entered into back in 2004, 2005, as well as requirements of the Clean Water Act on the water side of things. Operations and maintenance costs, those continue on every single year. Increases in personnel, those other types of things, chemicals, electricity, materials, and supply costs. And we're also aware of where we stand with the investment community and our credit quality. We have certain financial targets we aim to meet, and certain cash balance targets we shoot for, have to maintain certain debt service coverage levels and reserve levels. So just a quick overall summary of the proposed rate increases. These are across the board, so all the percentages will be applied to the current rate structure for residential, commercial, master meter, multifamily apartments. We're not changing anything with the current rate structure, and no changes, as Chair Gladman said, to extra strength or water and sewer capacity fees. Those will remain as they are in 2020. Every couple of years, we do a cost of service study just to do a check and balance where we are with our rates. And so we are in line with our current cost of service study. I like to show what the actual amount of additional revenue we would probably generate in 2021. On the sewer side, you can see there about close to $6 million, water a little over $3 million, and storm about $366,000. The drivers, as I mentioned very early on with our rates, that we bumped them down a little bit lower. And in an effort to do that, what we really looked at was our 2021 budget. We put that together here this summer, and you can see on the water side, we maintained our operating expense growth just barely above 1%. On the sewer side, we actually came in quite a bit lower. So we made a lot of efforts to really trim down supplies, look at our personnel expenses. We have not been hiring a whole lot of folks during the pandemic. And so equipment has been reduced as well. And so we figured we could go in with a little bit lower operating expenses. But you can see there our debt service has maintained at levels that they have in the past. We've been seeing those increases of, say, 7%, 5 to 7% year over year. And again, those are for past projects that have been have been constructed or in construction right now, and also adding in new debt service for future years. And you can see there I provided a little background on our capital improvement plan just to kind of give you a sense what it looks like over the next 6 years. We're looking at around $2.4 billion when you combine sewers, water, and storms capital improvement plan. So another big driver behind the rate increases. I like to show this slide to kind of show the public where we've been in the past and where we plan to be with our rate increases. Back in the mid to early 2000s, around 2006 to 2008, you can see that we were ramping up a lot because that's when we entered into our consent order, looking at rate increases, 15 to 20% almost. And since then, we've taken the approach to be, lower, consistent increases. We got in line with our capital program and started getting projects out and in compliance with our consent order and a relationship with the Ohio EPA and the Ohio EPA loan program. We really kind of got on a steady course to charge lower, consistent rate increases. You can see there in the out years around 24, 25, 26, we are projecting a little bit higher rate increases there, but no more than an aggregate of 5% is our projection at this time. A lot of that's driven by some major projects we're doing right now. The Lot Tunnel is one example. That's a $250 million project we're soon to award. And our water residuals plan is a large $200 million project that's really driving a lot of the rate increases. But we continue to use the Ohio EPA loan program as much as we can to keep rates low. sometimes people ask what would happen if we didn't do the approach that we take where we have low and steady rate increases. Could you go to zero? We could, but you can see there that if you say every other year we go to zero, what would that be? Residents would probably be paying, and commercial entities would be paying a 10% rate increase likely. And so, it's unknown what the future economy is going to be like, where we're going to be. So, that could be quite a bit of an impact as far as affordability, resulting in rate shock, resulting in higher delinquencies. So the steady approach allows us to continue to meet our debt service obligations, those are fixed obligations, and maintain our financial targets. Just to give you a quick comparison where we stand on the water and sewer side in relation to our regional utilities. On the water side, we're pretty much even, right in the middle, a little bit below Cleveland, a little bit above Cincinnati, but not near the top. We've made a lot of major improvements to our water infrastructure. All of our plants have undergone some major treatment process upgrades. We continue our water line rehab program, and we've done a lot over the years to establish a lot more capacity as far as up-ground reservoirs for our system. On the sewer side, we started, as I showed you in the graph before, a lot earlier than a lot of other communities, and that's allowed us to keep our rates low, where some of those other communities there that have higher rate increases, they have a different governance structure, number one, but also several of those are in the ramp-up stage that we were many years ago. I'll wrap up my presentation with some discussion on some of the assistance programs that folks can take advantage of, to help temper some of the rate increases. As I mentioned, the low-income and senior discount program, you'll receive a 20% discount on the commodity charge. And if you qualify for the senior discount, the fixed charge, or the service charge, would be waived. We've had pretty good participation in this. It's been pretty steady. We haven't seen a major increase or decline in the program. I will note that multifamily units and apartments can receive this discount too. There are some qualifiers there, proof of 80% of the residents participating, and even master meter communities that we provide water to, and then they do their own billing throughout their community. They can apply for those discounts as well. One of the things that I'd like to highlight is the CARES Act dollars. We were fortunate enough that the community was able to receive CARES Act dollars. Right now, those dollars are for folks that are facing utility shutoffs, so they have some overdue utility bills. And you can see here, they aren't directly through the utility. You don't contact the Public Utilities Department for these discounts at this time. You would contact some of these associations here, the Breathing Association, YMCA, numerous social service agencies. You can follow those web links, and they can help get you some assistance and to help reduce those utility bills. You can see here that, as I mentioned, our attendance and participation in the discount programs has been fairly consistent. We haven't seen a major spike in 2020 with the pandemic on the low-income side or on the senior side. We have made a change where, to make it easier for customers, they can actually go into our online bill portal link to our website and actually upload that documentation in the application, so to make it easier for folks. We have a lot of outreach areas, recreation centers, public health clinics, that folks can go and actually get an application and apply. So with that, Chair Dorans, I will close my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Assistant Director. One thing I'll note, just since you left the presentation with this, one of the changes that I was very encouraged to the department to make this past year was to allow that submission for low income or senior discounts online this year, which was, I think, a good step in the right direction. Got a couple questions for you, Assistant Director, and Chairman Gladman. If you want to weigh in on any of these questions, feel free. Just jump right in or wave at the screen, and I'll make sure we get you in here. Assistant Director, you mentioned in your presentation, these rate adjustments are lower than what we saw last year. Can you just speak to that again? As we've seen those historical trends sort of go up and down and stay pretty steady. Most folks are probably a little bit surprised to find out that this year is a little bit lower than what we experienced last year. Any specific conditions that allowed the department and the board to sort of make that recommendation this year?
Chair Dorans, yes, we did, as mentioned, when we put together our operating budget, that was one component where we went in and we said, what can we do as far as trimming some of our operating expenses. Again, we did another review of our capital plan, really looking at, how could we reduce our capital plan, but we, again, have been maintaining the momentum on that, even since the pandemic started from, March until now. We've been continuing to bid projects and get construction dollars out the door. But we looked at, what could we do from a burden on the customers, given that we've seen some increase in delinquencies. And so we knocked down the rates probably about a percentage, where we went in with water at 2%. Water was projected to really be around 3%, sewer more around 4%. We went in at 3%, storm at 2%, we went in at 1%. So it's a little bit of relief for folks, maybe about $10 at most on a quarterly basis, but it's something.
Sure. This, I think, builds up on that specific answer. One of the things we hear from the public every year is, hey, why do we have increases every year? Couldn't we hold those off for a longer period of time and give folks an opportunity to take a year or two off from increase of rates? So rather than them going up every year, why can't we just do a rate adjustment every 5 or 10 years? How would that affect the rates?
Great question, Councilmember Dorans. If we like as I illustrated, if we went in there and we took off every other year, or even 2, 3, 5 years, there would be a point where we're getting in, potential jeopardy as far as, our operating fund balances and our potential credit quality. That's looked at quite heavily from an investment side of things whenever we issue bonds to fund our capital program. And the ability to raise rates is a big factor as far as the overall rating, and maintaining a strong financial position and good liquidity levels is paramount. And so small increases, we look at it, as mentioned, as far as our strategy, somewhat tied to inflation, seems to be an affordable strategy, and allows us to cover our debt service costs, maintain financial metrics, and also avoids 10 to 15% increases that could really impact customers.
Assistant Director, I know I ask this question every year, and Chair Gladman, feel free to jump in here if need be. But the annual question is this the lowest rates increase that we can offer Columbus residents and our customers based upon all of the factors that you just talked about in your presentation?
Yeah, we believe that it is. We believe that these are reasonable but also responsible rate increases. They allow us to cover our operating expenses. They cover our capital needs. Debt service is fixed. Whenever we go out to the market to do these capital projects and we get bond funding or loan funding, that's fixed debt service that doesn't change. It's not variable in most cases. And so we have to be aware of that. And, again, it's not 10%, it's not 15%. A $7.35 increase is kind of on the high side, as I said. That's assuming 30 CCFs a quarter. Some folks will pay that, but a lot of folks will probably be paying a little bit less than that. So again, we think that it's equitable, fair, and reasonable rate increases to cover our capital program, maintain compliance with our consent order, and continue to maintain investments in our infrastructure and serve growing development and provide quality water to our residents.
Can you take a moment? Oh, Chair Glavine.
Thank you. I just wanted to add on to what Assistant Director Lee said. The board questions every year whether the rates are at their lowest and still allow the enterprise to operate it. We look at their operating reserves and question that. We push on getting more people into the discount program. So I think the staff does a good job of doing the analysis and providing that information to the advisory board. And the advisory board is very comfortable that the answer to your question is yes, this is probably the lowest rate that we can charge and still have the operational enterprise that we need.
Thank you, Chair Glavine. And I think that's a good way to point out is that not only does these rates come before council, that represents the public, but also the advisory board is sort of the eyes and ears of the public to scrutinize those rates even before they get to council. So I think that's an important mechanism within our system here to make sure that we're providing transparency and certainly input from the public to do what you just talked about, Chair. So thank you for mentioning that. Assistant Director, we talk about this every year, but anytime we have an opportunity, we're talking about dollars and cents as it relates to water and sewer for the city. We service not only the city of Columbus, but a significant portion of Central Ohio. And there are different rates that are charged based upon whether you're a city of Columbus customer versus if you're a suburban customer. I wanted to know if you could just talk about that for a moment about how that's structured and why.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Dorans. We do have a model that's pretty much a model that's an industry standard. You see it in many communities in Ohio and throughout the country, where the core city, in this case Columbus, and then you have the surrounding suburbs, which is charged a little bit higher rate. In our case, it would be 1.3 times for the suburban customers. I had mentioned in there in my presentation about what the bill impact would be with those, in addition to some surcharges, because once they're in their jurisdiction, they have various capital needs to connect, homes ultimately to our system. So number one, it's a pretty standard model. And we also are seeing a lot more consumption in the suburbs. When you look at Columbus versus the suburban communities, there's higher consumption out there. There's a cost associated with providing those services to transmit the water up there and also collect this sewer water down to our treatment plants. And so there's pumpage, treatment, storage, all those types of components. And one other thing I'll point out is that, the city of Columbus, the residents of the city are really the ultimate owners of the system. And there is, there could be a chance that an outside suburban community might decide to go with a private entity. There are some private entities that provide water and sewer services out there. They could go with that. But ultimately, the city of Columbus residents are required to pay back the debt of the system and are ultimately responsible for maintenance of the treatment plants and the infrastructure.
Thank you. Appreciate talking about that. The reason that those differences sort of exist for those different rate payers. I just want to mention, I know Assistant Director, you talked about it. We will post on my Facebook page the links to the COVID-19 payment resources. That is something that I know the department's been trying to push out on a continuing basis, and certainly us at City Council have been trying to do so as well. As we know, this is not just a health crisis, this is an economic one. And we've been fortunate to be able to utilize some of these CARES dollars to provide this kind of support. So want to make sure that folks have access to those. Normally, this is where we would turn in the hearing to the public testimony portion. However, we have not received any speaker slips for folks to testify virtually here tonight, nor has our office received any written testimony to date. Folks are still able to provide that testimony in written form, but we don't have anything to share during this hearing tonight. So I just want to thank you both for being here tonight to be part of this hearing. Again, I think it's important for us to make sure that when it comes to dollars and cents, we're trying to be as transparent as we possibly can be with members of the community. And I think having a hearing like this certainly pushes us towards making sure that folks understand what we're doing and why. Want to thank certainly the Department of Public Utilities, Chair Gladman of the Sewer and Water Advisory Board, members of my staff for helping to put this together tonight. Encourage folks that are looking for more information about this rate increase to visit the Department of Public Utilities website at www.columbus.gov/utilities. You can also call 614-645-8276. Also, if folks want to reach out to me individually, email's the best right now since we're all working remotely. My email is radorans, D-O-R-A-N-S, @columbus.gov. Folks are welcome to reach out to me using my email at any time on this topic or anything else. As this ordinance currently stands, ordinance number 2418-2020 to enact new water rates, ordinance number 2419-2020 to enact new sanitary sewer service rates, and ordinance number 2420-2020 to enact new stormwater fee rates were on our council agenda last night for first reading, and it will appear for passage at our next Columbus City Council meeting held this Monday, November 16th at 5 p.m. That council meeting will also be held virtually. So if folks are interested in attending that hearing or watching the hearing, they can certainly do so on the Columbus City Council's Facebook page or YouTube page. And with that, again, want to thank Assistant Director Lee and Chair Gladman for your time this evening. Appreciate all the information and certainly providing an opportunity to let the public know about these rate changes. So with that, I will gavel this hearing out. Have a great evening, everybody.